Hello students, I welcome you all to the lecture number 11 of the Indian Contract Act in the CA Foundation Cum CLAT lecture series sponsored by Sri Jendra Rankzon. I am your mentor Shekhar Garot. In this class, we will discuss about void agreements and what are void agreements or what things render an agreement as a void agreement. Okay, so this is a table which shows that these are the agreements which are expressly declared void by the Indian Contract Act. If any of the kind of agreement you enter, then this kind of agreement is declared as a void agreement expressly in writing by the Indian Contract Act. Okay, one is made by the incompetent parties. We have discussed, okay, that parties have to be competent. If they are incompetent, like a minor unsound mind, he enters into a contract, it would be a void agreement made under bilateral mistake of fact. We have discussed agreements, the constitution or object of which is unlawful. Agreement, the constitution or object is unlawful. Agreements made without consideration. Okay, agreement made without a consideration like 0 rupees, that is also void. Some exceptions are there like natural love and affection, voluntary uh, services in the past, or promise to pay a time barred debt, etc. are the exceptions. Agreement in restraint of marriage, agreement in restraint of trade, agreement in restraint of legal proceedings, agreement in the meaning of which is uncertain, wagering agreement, agreements to do impossible acts. These are all the kinds of agreements which are prohibited by the Indian Contract Act, wide various sections mentioned in front of these uh, kind of agreement as per the in the table. So agreement in restraint of marriage is a void agreement because everyone has a right to marry by his choice, his or her choice. Everyone has a right to marry with his or her choice. Now, some people say here that suppose A. Now, some people have a question that A enter into an agreement with B to marry each other. Now, when they are making this agreement, they are making this agreement out of free will and free consent, and they both want to marry each other. Okay, so tomorrow, how can a party breach this agreement? Because this agreement is free choice. People are free to choose whom they want to marry, and now they have chosen to marry each other, and they are entering into a agreement. Okay, so now what is the issue here? Okay, issue here is, first of all, it's not a social agreement. Okay, sorry, it's a social agreement, and plus at any time before the agreement is finally executed or finally performed, any party may choose not to marry each other. So in that case, we cannot compel someone to marry with A, or marry, we cannot compel A to marry with B just because when she entered the agreement, she had entered the agreement out of free will. No. Okay, ultimately, we cannot have any agreement which says that you must marry B only, or you cannot marry at all, or if you have to marry with these, 3, 4, 5 kind of boy or girl only. No, there cannot be anything. That's it. Person is free to marry, he wants to marry, he is free, he doesn't want to marry, he is free. That's it. If there is any agreement,
It's 5 o'clock.
okay, if a father makes a gift of the land to the daughter with a condition that she shall marry only a Brahmin boy or a Hindu boy or a Muslim boy, etc. This kind of contract is also a void contract. In this case, the girl will get the land, but she will be excused from performing this marriage as per the wishes of the father. She will be free. If she wants to marry a Brahmin, she may. She wants to marry a Muslim, she may. She wants to marry a Christian, she may. Okay, no issues. There cannot be any restraint on the marriage. she will keep the property as well as she is excused from performing the condition put up by her father. Agreement in restraint of trade. Now, agreement in restraint of trade, I'll give you a simple example of agreement in restraint of trade so that you can understand. Now, there can be two kind of agreements in the restraint of trade. First is a situation A takes an appointment with the Reliance, an electric energy firm. The contract of the employment says that A cannot take up any job anywhere in India after retirement from the company. Now, what is the restraint in trade means? Once he leaves the company, suppose he leaves the company when he is 50 years old, he doesn't retire, he gives a resignation. Okay, A leaves the company at 50 years of age. Now, for the next 20-30 years, till the time he is fit enough to work and he wants to work, will you keep him prohibited from employment? I mean, will Reliance keep him away from the work and can the court compel him just because an employment agreement that you cannot work anywhere in India now because you have signed an agreement? He says, I have 20 good years with me to work. I can work till 70. Later, I want to rest. For 70 years, I want to work and I have a good experience with me. I want to use it. Can the court say no, you won't work? No, court will never say so. Court will say that term the term of the contract which says you cannot take employment anywhere in India is void and against the public policy, and A is not bound by that contract. Okay, because it is against the restraint agreement in restraint of trade. There may be another condition. Okay, this condition is not there. Suppose this condition is there that A cannot take job with a competitor firm in India. Now, this kind of agreement is valid. This kind of clause is valid. Why? Because this is a reasonable restraint. This is not an absolute restraint. This is not an absolute restraint. They are not absolutely prohibiting him from work. It is just that you cannot work with any competitor. Okay, competitor. Only few electric firm companies are there which are competitive with the Reliance. You cannot take up employment with them anywhere in India, and let's make it more legal for next 3 years. This is fine, but if it says for any competitor in India for life, that would also be an unnecessary restraint. That agreement would be void. Okay, it has to be very specific, very short, and very sweet. Just like for 3 years, and competitive firm in India after 3 years, you can take job. So these kind of agreement are understood to be not in the restraint of trade, but reasonable restriction. Okay, in the interest of trade. So this first kind of agreement is definitely in the restraint of trade, not allowed. This kind of agreement is allowed. Okay, or sometimes there may be an agreement like a There may be another kind of agreement in restraint of trade. Like Reliance may enter into an agreement with the Tata that we both are spending so much, why not make good profit? Do one thing. Tata, you shift all of your business to North India and Reliance will not enter North India. And what we will do, we will shift all of our business from North India and we'll go to South India and you shall not enter South India. So Reliance will keep South India, Tata will keep North India. Okay, this agreement is void because not only this is against the practice of trade, but it is also against the public policy of India. Okay, it is against the free market. You are creating a monopoly. Okay, you are creating a monopoly of Tata in South North India and Reliance in South India. These are the kind of agreements which are prohibited by the act. An agreement by which any person is restrained from exercising a lawful profession, trade, or business of any kind is to that extent void. But this rule is subject to the following exceptions, namely, where a person sells the goodwill of a business and agrees with the buyer to refrain from carrying on similar business within specified local limits, so long as the buyer or his successor in interest carries on like business therein. Such an agreement is valid. Goodwill is the advantage enjoyed by a business on account of public patronage or encouragement from the habitual customers. The local limits within which the seller of the goodwill agrees not to carry on the similar business must be reasonable. Under Section 36 of the Indian Partnership Act 1932, if an outgoing partner makes an agreement with the continuing partner that he will not carry on any business similar to that of the firm within a specified period or within specified local limits, such an agreement, though in restraint of trade, will be valid if the restrictions imposed are reasonable. Similarly, under Section 11 of the Act, an agreement between partners not to carry on competing business during the continuance of partnership is valid. Okay, so these are the kind of agreements which are allowed and which are not allowed, and any kind of absolute restriction. Okay, any kind of absolute restrictions, it has to be within local limits. Okay, local limit may be different. It may be for some small company, it may be Tirunelveli district. For some big company, it may be Tamil Nadu as a whole. For some other company, it may be half of the South Asia. For another company, it may be half of India, then India or the world as a whole. Okay, it depends upon the type of the company and the goodwill of the company and the value of the sale and value of the so many other factors are involved. But usually, ultimately, if you are going to say that you cannot work in India or you cannot work in world or you cannot work in Chennai at all, never you can work, that is going to be very difficult agreement to be followed in the law, and it is definitely going to be a void agreement. But an agreement of service by which an employee binds himself during the term of his agreement not to compete with his employer is not a restraint in the trade. This simply means that during the employment, an employee is not supposed to carry out a competitive trade. Okay, that is a very reasonable thing. That is a very reasonable thing. B, a physician and surgeon. B is a physician and surgeon. Employs A as an assistant for a term of 3 years, and A agrees not to practice as a surgeon and physician during these 3 years. The agreement is valid, and A can be restrained by an injunction if he starts independent practice during this period. This is a very valid thing. Okay, because if he is going to, because otherwise, what A will do, A will start fishing for his customers. If A is having his own independent practice, A will start fishing his customers, B's customers. He'll take B's money, B's infrastructure, and then take back all his customers to his own office. This is not allowed. An agreement by a manufacturer to sell during a certain period his entire production to a wholesale merchant is not in restraint of trade. Agreement among the sellers of particular commodity not to sell the commodity for less than a fixed price is not an agreement in restraint of trade. Okay, though this particular is not a restraint of trade, but definitely it's an anti-competitive activity. So this kind of agreement is not allowed by Competition Act, but may be allowed by the Indian Contract Act. Agreement in restraint of legal proceedings. Okay. Similarly, it simply means that if you have committed a crime, okay, if you have committed a crime, then there cannot be an agreement which says crime cannot be your crime cannot be reported to the court. or no action can be taken on your crime in exchange of some money. This is not allowed. Okay. Agreement, the meaning of which is uncertain. An agreement, the meaning of which is not certain, is void. But where the meaning therefore is capable of being made certain, the agreement is valid. Okay. Simply an agreement which you cannot understand, how can you enforce it? Okay, so it cannot be enforced at all. The agreement which is very vague, ambiguous, not clear, nobody can understand it. Every word is having two different meanings. So how do you enforce it? How do you follow it? Okay, so you cannot follow such an agreement. So these kind of agreements are indistinct, are void. But if they are clear, definitely they can be understood, they can be made certain. A agrees to sell B 100 tons of oil. There is nothing whatever to show what kind of oil was intended. The agreement is void for uncertainty, but the agreement would be valid if A was the dealer only in coconut oil, because in such a case its meaning would be capable of being made certain. Okay, if A is only a coconut oil dealer, and then you say send me 100 tons of oil, now you know what 100 tons of oil A is selling. A is only selling coconut oil, so it is now certain. But if A is having say two type of oil, coconut oil or the sesame oil or any other oil, two three oils. Now how do you make out which oil is he asking for? So there is again a difficulty in this department. When agreement is not certain, it is definitely a void agreement. Wagering agreement, an agreement by way of wager is void. Okay, an agreement by way of wager is void. Wager, what is wager? Wager is simply betting. Wager is betting or gambling. It's just like if Dhoni does not, A says he'll pay 100 rupees to B. If Dhoni wins a century, B says he will pay 100 rupees to A if Dhoni does not hit a century. Now, this kind of an agreement, it is purely a betting agreement. It's a gambling agreement. So, this kind of agreement is void. Okay, it's a void because it is against the public policy as well as it is immoral. Okay, it is immoral. An agreement by way of wager is void. It is an agreement involving payment of a sum of money upon the determination of an uncertain event. An agreement by way of a wager is void. It is an agreement involving payment of a sum of money upon determination of an uncertain event. Okay. It is an agreement involving payment of sum of money. Payment of sum of money. What is the payment of sum of money here? 100 rupees to be upon determination of an uncertain event. Uncertain event. Whether Dhoni will hit a century or not, nobody knows. Who knows? Not even Dhoni knows it. So this is uncertain. This is pure gambling. Nobody knows whether Dhoni will hit a century or not. The essence of wager is that each side should stand to win or lose. Okay, depending on the way an uncertain event takes place in reference to which the chance is taken. Okay, the essence of wager is one must lose, other must win. This is the essence of contract, a wagering contract. While in a normal contract, in a normal contract, what will happen? A will ask B to construct his house and he will pay money to the B. So now B is also earning something, A is also getting a house constructed. Both are winning, both are getting benefited. Okay, but in this case, one must lose, one must win. One is losing 100 rupees, one is getting 100 rupees. Okay, so the one who's losing 100 rupees, there is no benefit to him at all. But in normal contract, both sides get benefited. So in wager contract, it is always and always one must lose, one must win. It is always that kind of contract. One will always lose, one will always win. There is no mutual win. Both people can never win in a wagering contract. And in the occurrence of which neither of the parties has legitimate interest. No party has legitimate interest in the occurrence. No party has a genuine interest whether Dhoni would hit a century or not, other than that 100 rupees is at the stake. Otherwise, they hardly care whether Dhoni will hit a century or goes out for a duck. A agrees to pay 50,000 to B if it rains, and B promises to pay a like amount to A if it does not rain. So now people are placing a bet whether it would rain today or not. If it rains, I will pay you 100 rupees. If it doesn't rain, you pay me 50,000 rupees. The agreement will be by way of wager. But if one of the parties has control over the event, agreement is not a wager. But if one of the party has control over the event, now nobody has control over the rain. Nobody can dictate whether it would rain or not. Okay, so nobody has a control over the rain. So agreement is going to be a wager. It's not a valid agreement at all. Now these are the essentials of wager. There must be a promise to pay money. Okay, there must be a promise to pay money or money's worth. Money or money's worth, like TV, radio, bicycle, cycle, car, etc. Okay, promise must be conditional on an event happening or not happening. Promise must be like if this happens or if this not happen. If it rains or it doesn't rain. If Dhoni hits century or if Dhoni doesn't hit century. There must be uncertainty of event. Nobody knows whether it would rain or not. There's no clarity at all. Nobody knows whether Dhoni will hit a century or not. There must be two parties. Each party must stand to win or lose. Each party must stand to win or lose. Either one will win or other will lose. There cannot be mutual winning. There must be common intention to bet at the timing of making such agreement. The common intention is the betting. Okay, common intention of both the parties is they are gambling only, they are not having any other intention. Parties should have no interest in event except for stake. Parties have no interest other than their money involved. Okay, they don't have an interest whether it would rain or not. They are not farmers. Okay, they are not getting benefited or distress due to rain happening or not, but it's only their money is at stake. That is why they are worried about the rain. This is an essential of a wager agreement. Wager agreement is pure gambling, pure betting, nothing else. Pure a game of luck, a game of chance. You throw a dice. If it's head, you take 50,000 rupees. If it's tail, you take 50,000 rupees. It is this. Okay, pure luck, nothing else. Transactions similar to wager or gambling. Now let us discuss some transactions which are similar to wager or gambling. One is lottery transaction. A lottery is a game of choice and not of skill or knowledge. Where the prime motive of participant is gambling, the transaction amounts to wager. Even if lottery is sanctioned by the government of India, it's a wagering transaction. The only effect of such transaction is that person responsible for running the lottery will not be punished under the Indian Penal Code. Lotteries are illegal and even collateral transactions to it are tainted with illegality. Okay, so even if the lottery is allowed by the government of India, it will still remain to be a wager agreement, though for some purpose government has made it legal, so it may become legal, but otherwise in pure sense of contract, wagering contract is no contract at all. It's a void contract, though in India it is not allowed. Some states though allow it in a limited manner. Crossword puzzles in which prizes depend upon the correspondence of the competitor's solution with a previously prepared solution kept with the editor of a newspaper is a lottery and therefore a wagering transaction. Okay, crossword puzzles in which prizes depend upon the correspondence, depend upon the matching of competitor's solution with previously prepared solution kept with editor is a wager. If in this case the solution of the crossword is not depending upon the previously prepared copy of the solution kept with the editor of the paper, then in that case it is not going to be a wagering contract, because in this case it's a pure game of skill. Crossword puzzle can have more than one answer, it can have more than 2 3 answers, but if you want people to answer only in the manner in which editor finds fit, then it's going to be a wagering contract. If you are leaving it for the pure skill of the people, then it's going to be a valid contract, otherwise it's a void contract at all. Speculative transactions. An agreement or a share market transaction where the parties intend to settle the difference between the contract price and the market price of certain goods or shares on specified day is a gambling and hence void. Okay, speculative transactions on the share market are also gamble and they are also void. Horse race transaction. A horse race competition where prize payable to the bet winner is less than 500 is a wager. Less than 500 is a wager, more than 500 is not a wager. Okay, more than 500 is not a wager. Only less than 500 is a wager. Though some states have allowed horse racing, though some states have allowed horse racing in their respective states, like Maharashtra has allowed it, I guess Bangalore and Delhi have allowed betting on horse races, but otherwise it's a wagering contract, usually not allowed, but in some states it is allowed only to the members. A and B enter into an agreement in which A promises to pay 2 lakh rupees provided Chetak wins the horse race. Chetak is the name of a horse. Wins the horse race competition. This is a wagering transaction. Okay. However, Section 30 is not applicable in an agreement to contribute towards plate, prize, or some money of value 5 lakh or above to be awarded to the winner of a horse race. Okay, if the money is contributed and the award is given to the winner of the horse race, then this is not applicable there. Transactions resembling with the wagering transactions but not void. Some transactions which resemble, which look like a wager but are not void. Okay, so horse racing is one such which is though a void transaction, avoid but still allowed by some states. So horse racing definitely can be one such example. Other is chit fund. A chit fund, usually in common parlance in Delhi, I don't know what you people call them in Tamil Nadu. In Delhi, we call them committee system. Okay, committee system in which local people or housewives Okay, this is usually a lottery, not lottery. I'm saying it's a committee system in which local housewives or local people usually they come from a pool of local peoples. They each contribute say 1,000 rupees, 20 people. Then they will carry out a chit. If chit goes to A will get all those 20,000 rupees that month, and this and that like this. Okay, so it's a committee system. Chit fund is a committee system in the common language, colloquial language. Chit fund does not come within the scope of wager. In case of a chit fund, a certain number of persons decide to contribute a fixed sum of specified period, and at the end of month, the amount so contributed is paid to the lucky winner of the lucky draw. Okay, it is not a wager. It does not come within the wager because people actually have interest. People actually have interest in the outcome because they are putting their all money, and it's a win-win for all of them. Ultimately, everyone is going to get something. So it's a win-win situation. It's not a win-lose situation, and it's not like people do not have any interest at all whether Sachin hits a century or not. It is here people have an interest. Commercial transactions or share market transactions. In these transactions in which delivery of goods or shares is intended to be given or taken do not amount to wagers. Games of skill and athletic competition, crossword puzzles, picture competitions, and athletic competitions where prizes are awarded on basis of skill and intelligence are the games of skill, and hence such competition are valid. According to the Prize Competition Act 1955, prize competition in games of skill are not wagers. Wagers provided the prize money does not exceed 1,000 rupees, though it is still not applicable. It is not as much applicable as right now because 1,000 is a very less amount. It was put there in back in year 1955, so it should have been increased now, but they do not change it. They keep on. They are like this only. A contract of insurance. A contract of insurance is a type of contingent contract. Contingent means which is based upon happening or not happening of a certain event and is valid under law. These contracts are different from wagering contracts. Okay. Now insurance contract is a valid contract. Okay, it's not a wagering contract. Though what happens in the insurance contract? If I die, the insurance company will pay my family 1 crore rupees for say, and if I do not die, I will pay insurance company suppose say 4 to 6 lakhs rupees. I'll just pay 6 lakh rupees, and in the event, unfortunate event, I die, insurance company will have to pay 1 crore rupees. So this is sometimes said that it's a kind of wager, though it is not a wager at all. Why it is not a wager? We'll just see. Distinction between contract of insurance and wagering agreement. Basis, the meaning basis. First of all, what is the category of differentiation? First is meaning. It is a contract to indemnify the loss. Okay, contract of insurance is contract to indemnify the loss. If I take a fire insurance on my goods, tomorrow if I suffer a loss due to fire on my goods, insurance company will indemnify me. It is a contract of indemnifying. Tomorrow if I suffer a loss, you will pay for my loss. It is a promise to pay money or money is worth on happening or non happening of an uncertain event. In this case, it is paying money or money is worth on happening or non happening of uncertain event, like if it rains or not, if BJP wins election or not, if Dhoni hits a century or not. Okay, it is indemnity. It is indemnity. If I if Godown catches fire, they will pay me. Okay, it is not like if he wins, you pay me that. If he doesn't win, you pay me that. It is not totally like that. The crux of insurance contract is the mutual consideration. Okay, both party are paying something. One party is paying a premium amount. I have taken a goods insurance. I have taken insurance over my goods. I am paying a premium, and if tomorrow something happens, insurance company will pay me a compensation. Okay, but here there is no consideration between two parties. It's just a gambling. If you win, you take. If you lose, you give. That's it. Nothing else. Insurable interest. Insured party has insurable interest in life or property sought to be insured. Okay, insurable interest is there. There is no property in case of wagering agreement. There is no property at all. It is just purely on the working in the winds. They are working on the winds. No property. This is betting on others' life and property. Okay, people are betting on others' life or property. Others win and others lost. They have nothing of their own. Here, people actually have their own life and their own property at stake. Except for life insurance, because in life insurance, person is actually dead. The one who has taken the premium is dead. The insurance, the contract of insurance in all other cases, car insurance, medical insurance, goods insurance, etc. The insurance indemnifies the insured person against loss. Okay. Here the loser has to pay the fixed amount on the happening of an uncertain event. Here the loser is the one who is making a payment. Here someone who has suffered a loss is getting a payment. Here the loser is making a payment. Here the loser is getting a compensation. Enforceability, it is valid and enforceable. It is void and unenforceable agreement. Wager agreement is void and therefore unenforceable. This contract of insurance is a valid as well as enforceable. Now, the premium. The calculation of premium which a person has to pay is based on scientific and actuarial calculation risk. Based on scientific and actuarial calculation risk, no such logical calculation are required in case of wagering agreement. Whatever fits the bill, whatever loss you can suffer, you can engage in the betting on that particular amount. Public welfare, they are beneficial to the society. Insurance contracts are for the benefit of the society, for the larger interest of the society. Wagering agreements have been regarded as against the public welfare. Okay, now let's move on to breach of contract. Okay, now let's move on to breach of contract. What is a breach of contract? Now we are on the end concluding part of the Indian Contract Act. We are almost done with our Indian Contract Act. We are on the end part of it. Now, breach of contract is of different types. There is anticipated breach of contract, actual breach of contract. Okay, two types of breach. Then remedies for the breach of contract. What is the remedy if your contract has been breached by some parties? You can file a suit for damages, rescission of contract, suit for specific performance, suit for injunction, suit upon quantum merit. Okay, now and what kind of damages are there? Ordinary, special, vindictive, nominal, prefix damages. And prefix damages further to category, that is liquidated damage and the penalty. So this is the flow chart of breach of contract and what is happening once a contract is breached. What things will come into picture once a contract has been broken. We have so far seen how a contract is made, the essential of a valid contract, and also how a contract is to be performed, as well as how a contract may be put an end. We shall now discuss about the breach of contract and also the mode in which compensation for breach of contract is estimated. Now we'll decide. Now we'll discuss how the contract breach of contract takes place. Then what are the remedies, and then how we have to find out the damages. What is the compensation which has to be paid by a party who has committed a breach in the contract? These are all issues dealt in by this topic. Breach means a failure of a party to perform his or her obligation under a contract. Okay, so breach means breaking. Breach means breaking. Okay, breaking a promise. A agrees to supply 500 kg of wheat to B by 31st of December 2020, but A fails to supply even by March 2021. Now, in this case, A has committed a breach of contract because he had made a promise that he will supply wheat by 500 kg of wheat by 31st of December. But now we stand at March 2021. Okay, and he has still not supplied even 2 kg of wheat. So now A has committed a breach of contract. Okay, A has committed a breach of contract. This is called because he has broken a promise. Okay, breach means failure of a party to perform his or her obligation under a contract. Breach of contract may arise in two ways. A contract may be breached in two ways. First is actual breach of contract, and second is anticipatory breach of contract. Anticipatory breach of contract. Now, in this case, we have discussed an actual breach of contract when the date came up and he did not supply the required wheat even after the desired date, even after 3 months after the desired date. He has committed a breach of contract. Actual breach of contract has happened. Now let us see anticipatory breach of contract. Okay. This is anticipatory breach of contract. And anticipatory means anticipatory comes out of the word anticipation. It means apprehension or may say apprehension or fear in advance. Okay, somebody has a fear in advance that it may happen, something bad may happen. That is called apprehension. That is called anticipation. Anticipatory breach of contract means you are afraid that this person is going to commit the breach of a contract. Now, how you will know that someone is going to commit a breach of contract? Let us see. An anticipatory breach of contract is a breach of contract occurring before the time fixed for performance has arrived. An anticipated breach of contract is breach of contract occurring before the time for fixed for performance has arrived. When the promisor refuses altogether to perform his promise and signifies his unwillingness even before the time for performance has arrived, it is called anticipatory breach. Okay. Anticipated breach of contract may happen either in following two ways: expressly by words spoken and written. Expressly by words spoken. A enters here. A has expressly, either in writing or orally, has informed B has informed A that he will not be able to perform his part of the contract. He has now put his hands up. He has simply said that I cannot do this. My crop is either damaged or my crop is not ready. On 19th of November, you go and talk to someone else. I will not be able to provide you wheat by 31st of December. That is anticipatory breach of contract by words spoken or written. He has now A has a good reason to believe that this person is not going to comply with the contract because he is himself saying so that I will not fulfill the contract. Implied by conduct of the parties. It may be implied by the conduct of the parties as well. When can it be implied? A enters. Now take the above example. A enters into contract with B to supply 100 kg of wheat by 31st December. Now A comes to know Now he comes to know that B has already sold his harvested pre-harvest crop to C and given the right to he has given the right of yield to C. B has sold the right of yield to C. He has said B has entered in subsequent agreement with C that whatever be my crop, 100 kg, 200 kg, 50 kg, 1000 kg, whatever be it, you take it upon harvest, and he has taken a lump sum amount. Now A comes to know this. Now A has a full reason, a good reason to anticipate the breach of contract. He can now understand that B is definitely going to commit breach of contract because now he has sold of the right to yield to C. Now he has a full reason to believe by the conduct of B that B is going to commit breach of the contract. Let's have some examples. Where a contracts with B on 15th of July 2016 to supply 10 bales of cotton for a specified sum on 14th August 2016, and on 30th July B informs that he will not be able to supply the said cotton on 14th. There is an express rejection of the contract. This is an express breach of the contract anticipatory. Where A agrees to sell his white horse to B for 50,000 on 10th August 2016, but he sells this horse to C on 1st August 2016. That anticipatory breach has occurred by the conduct of the promiser, just like the examples we discussed. Section 39 of the Indian Contract Act deals with the anticipatory breach of contract and provides as follows. When a party to a contract has refused to perform or disable himself from performing his promise in its entirety, the promisee may be put an end. The promisee may put an end to the contract unless he has signified by words or conduct his acquiescence in its continuance. Okay, now this contract has become voidable. The promisee, when a party to the contract, when promiser has failed to fulfill his promise, the promisee, okay, the other party may choose to continue with whatever contract is left, okay, or may cancel the contract altogether. A says after entering the contract, B tells A that now later on I cannot supply 100 kg of wheat by 31st December, but yes, I could supply only 60 kg of wheat, that too by 20th of January. If A agrees, okay, if now B says I cannot supply 100 kg wheat by 31st of December, but could supply only 60 kg, that too by 20th of January. Okay, I can supply only 20th, I can supply only 60 kg, that by 20th of January. If A agrees, okay, then the contract will stand modified. Then it means that new contract has come into picture. Earlier contract has been replaced by the new contract. Or if it does not, then the contract stands cancelled. Okay, parties will have to pay back an advance which they had taken for this contract. Effects of the anticipatory breach. The promisee is excused from performance or from further performance. Further, he gets an option. The promisee is excused from performance or from further performance. Okay, so the promisee or A is not required to do his part of the contract, or if he has already done some part of the contract, he is not required to do any other act. He also gets an option to either treat the contract as rescinded and sue the other party for damages from breach of contract immediately without waiting until the due date of performance. He can immediately sue without waiting for the date of the contract, okay, performance of the contract. He can rescind the contract and immediately sue for compensation, or he may elect not to resign but to treat the contract as still operative, or he may choose that it's okay, whatever has happened, you comply this part of the contract only, no issues, and wait for the time of performance and then hold the other party responsible for the consequences of non-performance. But in this case, he will keep the contract alive for the benefit of the other party as well as his own, and the guilty party, if he so decides on reconsideration, may still perform his part of the contract and can also take advantage of any supervening possibility which may have the effect of discharging the contract. Okay, so we are done with our anticipatory breach of the contract.